Hey friends, it's Luke Crawford here. I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to be speaking at Rooted Revival 2025 at Houghton University. And as part of that series, have been developing some podcast conversations with individuals who attended Houghton in the past and are now alumni. These men and women have walked in faith in a host of different vocations in ways that I think are deeply inspiring and compelling for the active students as they consider what God is doing in them as current university students and what He wants to do with them in the future going forward. And so the purpose of these conversations is to go a little bit deeper in what we've had the chance to talk about in Wesley Chapel and the various Rooted Revival sessions, what it looks like to discern our call and purpose, what it looks like to lean into God in times of need, what it looks like to grow in our love for God and for community, and what it looks like to unpack our purpose and where and what God has called us to do to make a beautiful difference in the world. And so as you take the chance to listen to these conversations, I hope they encourage and inspire you. I hope they're cause for helping you to consider in a deeper and a new way how God is using this season of your life to equip you for exactly what He wants to do in and through you that only you can do to make an eternal difference in the world. So thanks for tuning in and enjoy these conversations.
Well, friends, thanks so much for being on this conversation with me. As you know, this is part of the Rooted Revival 2025 series, and I'm so thankful to be sitting down with Houghton alumni and a personal friend of mine, Kathryn-Rose Weber. Good to see you, KR.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. It's a good time.
Here we are.
It's a good time. And KR's doing good stuff because she's got kids napping and playing in other rooms, so she's being especially versatile to be on the call today. So shout out to her and all the moms out there who make things like this happen on a regular basis. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. So, Kara, let's dive in because you and I met August of 2010, freshman at good old then Houghton College, now Houghton University.
Yeah.
And I'm just intrigued to know, as someone who is a native Rhode Islander, why'd you choose Houghton? What got you to Western New York, to Allegheny County of all places in the
Yeah.
first place?
Yeah. I think what started the whole thing, and I was trying to think about like, wow, Houghton feels so like long ago. But yeah, just the other day, I feel like I was walking on Houghton's campus. I remember it was a crazy snowstorm. It was like I visited and we were walking through like this, trying to I remember just seeing my steps in the snow, trying to watch like where we were going and go to each of the buildings. And it was in a like not an ideal situation at all to visit. And I remember just we left. I visited with my family, and Houghton was on the list. So I was doing this big college tour, and checking out all these places. And I remember Houghton being on there because I knew I wanted to study psychology going into college, and I knew from a trusted Christian perspective. And that's it. That's what it was. That's what put Houghton on the map for me. And I left there, even in the like crazy circumstance of not ideal weather and not seeing everything. I just had peace about it. I just had peace that this is where God was calling me. It was unexplainable to look at the like physical circumstances of the visit. I just knew I was supposed to be there. There was just this peace that God gave me, and it all came together and worked out. So
Wow. And classic Houghton. It's like, here's a blizzard. You should attend.
honestly,
Wow. Speak to that piece for a second, though, just because,
yeah.
man, being able to discern God's direction in a pretty monumental life decision is a really important thing. And I
Yeah.
feel like for so many people, myself included, peace is something that we enjoy, but can sometimes be elusive. And on the cusp of a big life decision, can be hard to nail down. Like, is that peace, or did I just have my favorite chocolate chip cookie? You know,
Right.
what was that, like, that calm, that sense of clarity? Like, how would you explain that?
The only way I can describe it, and I've had it a couple of times in my life, because I am not someone that makes decisions very easily. With like, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? Like, what if I make the wrong decision? Is God still working in my life? How do like, what if I make, down the wrong path and mess everything up? And that peace, it's what the Bible talks about. Like, it's the only way I can describe it, is that peace that surpasses all understanding. It doesn't make sense when you look at your circumstances. It isn't something that you can just conjure up and make yourself like feel good about. It's this deep centering. No, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. I had the same thing when from Rhode Island down to Tennessee. That wasn't on my like radar at all. This wasn't like, oh, I'm going to move to Nashville. This is a goal of mine. God just opened doors and made it very apparent that this was the next step. And that's how I find the Lord confirms things for me, is that deep down peace. Because like you said, like decisions like that, where you're going to go to school, where you live, who you're going to marry, whether or not you have kids, like all of those seemingly big life decisions can feel overwhelming. And that peace is just a centering, grounding, like, no, I think this is going to be okay. That's the only way
Mm.
I can. It doesn't make sense when you look at your surroundings and your circumstances, but it's there.
Well, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So looking back on 4 years at Houghton, would you have a favorite memory or experience you'd point to that kind of captures the essence of your time there?
Yeah. I I remember Koinonia being a really big one. I don't know if they still do
Mhm.
that, but Sunday nights they had the worship service.
Yeah.
Um, I loved that. That was a great way to kind of reset my week, to start it on a good foot. Did I make it every week? No. Was there a paper due sometimes? Yes. But when I went, I remember that just being a really good time of worship with fellow classmates. It was just an always like a really encouraging thing when I look back on my time at Houghton. Um, and then I think on the like, that was more on the deeper side of like good memories, but I think on the other side of good memories, I think my time as the Gillette ARD, having a space
Mm.
in my apartment, I remember like being able to open that up to people and just have, I mean, I like my classic example of that is you like laying out on my floor, like,
Couch or floor?
and I like had all these people. I think I was coming back from a class late at night and I walked into my apartment and like, I don't know, 5 people were studying. And they're like, by the way, Luke's sleeping on the floor. And I was like, okay.
I think the context, I feel like it was like exam week, like
Yes.
December of
Really.
2012. And like a
Yep.
bunch of people were sitting there. You had kindly had like
Yep.
chocolate and probably hot beverages on hand. And it was like, oh my gosh, when you're just like burning the candle at both ends. And
Yeah.
I was like, I can't think. I'm
Yep.
gonna go sleep over there. I'm gonna be back in 15 minutes.
Yep. And I
Give
remember
me an
just like,
energy drink.
oh, like didn't even phase me, like step over you to get to like where I needed to go. And that's a very vivid memory for me. But it was so sweet because it just so beautifully like encompasses what I wanted that time to be. Like it was a place where you could just have memories and walk in and walk out and have a study snack and study and talk and chat and like commiserate on your papers, all that kind of stuff. I remember that just being a really cool, like when I think back on my time at Houghton, I remember that being just a really fun year. So
Yeah, a place that was like a haven for people.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. The people that were like, we want Luke to come and speak at Houghton were like, what? But there you go, friends. This is how you get through college. Sometimes you're sleeping on your friend's floor during
you know
exam week.
what you have to do.
The struggle is real. And caffeine.
Yes,
We made it
caffeine.
happen.
Yep, you make it through.
So it's intriguing for me because already in just the first few minutes of our conversation, you've touched on the piece of making a decision to be at Houghton,
Mm,
the reorienting kind of refocusing experience of koinonia, the opportunity to cultivate a space where people could crash,
yeah.
could land, and already there's this theme of like peace, again the word haven comes to
Mm,
mind, and so when I think about the experience of college and when current students are there, like who are listening right now, I'm sure they would say, sometimes this place is a haven. Sometimes I think I'm going to lose my mind.
yeah.
And yet you really intentionally had places and rhythms and relationships that cultivated that peace in your life.
Mm.
And so I wonder, for the student out there that's like, I'm going 110 miles an hour. I can't survive without 8 cups of coffee. How would you speak into that? Because you are an active student with lots going
Mhm.
on. What did it look like to cultivate those rhythms of peace?
Yeah. Well, I would say me too. Me too. That was also me. I think you can have both. Like you can they can coexist, right? Like you
Mm.
can create those haven spaces. And I think that takes intentionality because, yeah, I was full-time student. Yeah, psychology major. I had a double minor. I was intern at the visit office. I was on residence life for 3 out of the 4 years that I was there. Like looking back, the number of plates that I was spinning was probably crazy, but it was fulfilling in a way, but it also was challenging. Like you do have that place of you need to learn, and I'm still learning this like 10 years out or whatever we are, like cultivating havens for yourself and creating space for that piece to exist. Create like it takes intentionality, and busyness, although it can be good, isn't always a like a I don't know. It doesn't need to be something that you find your identity in. I think I struggled with that a little bit of like I want to be involved in this and this and this and this, and it becomes a mark of pride almost. You know what I mean? Of like, oh well, I can do all things. Look at all of the places I'm involved, and it has its place. Like I think while you're in college and you have time to explore all of these different campus opportunities and learn all of these things, I guess making sure that you're also intentionally setting aside time for peace, time for God to work in your life and to speak to you, and for you to, pour into the friendships that He has given to you and put in your like in your place of where you are right now. I think it's a balance that like I don't have the answer. I think it's a balance that you learn continually through into adulthood. You know what I mean? And I think it looks different for every person. I don't know that that answers your question, but um, it's teaching yourself how to be intentional with that, and that it takes practice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's totally fair. What would you say were some of those relationships, those friendships that were formative for you, whether it's with peers or with like professors or staff people, that were really formative in your life, not only in who you were then, but in shaping who you are now?
Yeah, golly. um it is, I think, all of those spheres. It's peers, it's people like you, like 10 years out. I mean, we live in separate countries, really, and we've still been able to cross paths with each other and stay in touch after, getting married and starting our respective families. Like those relationships start there. And so I'm so thankful for those that can still continue on and like you keep in touch intentionally. I think of professors specifically, like theology professors who poured into me with a theology minor, like those, like, Case and Walters and the professors that made me like really think about
Mm.
why I'm doing what I'm doing. Dr. Young with psychology and all of that. Like I think that they forced me to really think for myself. I think that's really where I started to grow, and that also shapes like who I am today. So that's like the academic side, but I think also spiritually, I think of like JL and the like true mentor that he was to me in my time at Houghton and beyond. And I think of, you have your pockets of friends and all of that, and then I think of like our RA staff and how that there was like the purpose of that was for residence life and being in leadership in that way. But I think of all of our staff meetings and the way that we were able to be open and vulnerable with each other as a staff. I think I learned how to do that, and to come like as you are, like struggling with academics, late doing homework, but also like, hey, I'm struggling with this spiritually, like let's pray for each other, let's work through this, like not being afraid to have those hard conversations. And so I think of someone like JL who was that person, and the number of times I could cry. The number of times like JL would meet with me, whether it was in our one-on-ones or there was always time to carve out for me, for you, for anyone on staff. And I strive to be a person like that now. I think that I saw like the impact that that had on me and the importance of learning to just like be, and learning that like other things can wait in life. And sometimes you just need to be and to pray with people, and to yeah, to pour into that sort of thing. So I think the mentorship there has also like taught me what I can be for somebody else. Um, I mean, yeah, fast forward years later and I could still pick up the phone and call JL and it would be like no time has passed, you know? So
Mm.
uh, those are the relationships that I think formed who I am today. They're formative there. They're formative as I moved out of there, and continue to be. And that's so special.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and hopefully for current students listening, there's some inspiration in that to say, hey, there's some really quality people
Yep.
in that life and community around you for you to lean into and reach out to and grow with and learn from. And to give context, so JL, we're talking about JL Miller, who at the time was I guess the RD for the townhouses. And so our senior year care and I were on an RA staff serving under JL in the townhouses. And it was a time. In my humble opinion, the best place to be. But that's just me. But we talked about residence life earlier. Sorry, say that again.
No, I said I agree. I'm not going to do that.
Yep, good time. Chasing scouts off the property and everything.
Yep.
So you served, as you said, you were an RA in Gillette, you were the ARD in Gillette, and then you were an RA in the townhouses. And I'd love for you to speak into that experience because you're not just in residence, you're shaping the culture, you're
Yeah.
leading other people, you're in some instances holding people accountable. In other instances, you're being a real support, almost like a big sister to
Yeah.
people, and you're seeking to embrace and embody the vision of the school for the student body
Mhm.
while also trying to graduate. There's like lots going on. And so what did that experience teach you? And you can take that in any direction you want to go in, whether it be people skills or personal responsibility.
Mm.
But also I'd love for you to speak to in your response the leadership component of that.
Yeah.
Because you were a student leader on campus. And there's a lot of people that'll be listening in saying, what does it look like for me in my responsibilities to shape the culture here, to be a leader here? So again, you're welcome to run with that in any direction, but would love for you to, in the midst of that, touch on that leadership piece.
Yeah. I think it taught me a lot of things. And I think that in each area, as an RA in two different locations, and then as ARD, which is a little bit more like specific and had a little bit more and different responsibility. Um, I definitely like practically just grew in a lot of my like leadership skills. I'm naturally like going into college, I was a very quiet person. I'm not an outgoing person. Um, people like you intimidate me because you can just start a conversation, right? No, but it was like, okay, we're rolling with it. You know what I mean? It was like a good, like, okay. And that's not naturally like who I was going into college. And I grew into the ability to like start conversations and be the first person to say something. And so that was good. Like that was a good stretching thing because I wasn't naturally like that. And so I definitely grew in that ability. Um, I think I also grew in time management because you have to. Like you're managing responsibilities in residence life, you're managing responsibilities for my job, um, abilities as a student. And so just a practical like time management and how to block my time. And that meant like saying no to some fun things. Like there were some times I couldn't go hang out with friends and that's okay, but that's life. That's like learning experience, right? And so it's something that you just like learn practically. Um, but specifically from the leadership perspective, I think learning that not leadership isn't always like being up in front. It doesn't always mean you get to do things first. It doesn't mean that um, you get the limelight all the time, that there are always like good things that happen when people are in leadership. It's that pyramid that they talk about, like flipping upside down, right? That you're the one that is supposed to be at the bottom and you're the servant. And
Hmm.
and like practically learning those kinds of things um, as a leader. Like a leader means that you're servant. And I think it also means that sometimes it's not always about, hey, do this or enforce rules. Like, yes, it's doing that, but it's also quietly leading a life that just lives out what you're supposed to be leading. You know what I mean? So like I knew people were always watching me because like I'm the ARD. Like hundreds of girls live in this building. They all know who I am. Um, And that's, again, not like a pride thing. It's just a way for like you to realize that not a fishbowl necessarily, but like people are watching you. And so be careful in your interactions. Be careful. And I'm never perfect. Like nobody's perfect in that. But it's leading in like a quiet, everyday, steady action, in the conversations that I have, in the actions that I take. You know, it's not always all up in front. It's about how can you usher in and serve people that you are leader of, really.
Mm. Yeah. If there's somebody listening in who is in residence life right now, like as a student or aspires to be, what's one thing that you'd say, do this every week or every day?
Oof. Um, I mean, aside from like the obvious, you need to just like constantly look to the Lord. I think that that's what's going to transform you, right? It's not about you just checking off a list to make sure you're doing all the right things as the leader and be the good person. Like change starts on the inside. So it's making sure that the Lord is like checking your heart and checking who you are, so that you can pour out in that way. But I think it's also like from a practical perspective, like finding 15 minutes of your day where you do something that feeds you. I remember that like being also something that I had to learn. It's not a bad thing to take some time for yourself so that you are not pouring out of nothing. To like be feeding yourself, because otherwise you're going to run yourself ragged. And so whether that's like, I don't know, journaling, whether that's working on some sort of craft project, whether that's listening to some music. Like I remember I wasn't a music major, but music was always a big thing for me. Sometimes I would just go to the music building and find a piano in a room and just play. Like something that you can do to give yourself something as you are also pouring out into the other students and in the body there.
Yeah, well said. Well, university can be a great time. University can be a messy time. University can be a painful time. And I wonder, were there any significant experiences of adversity or even suffering that you walked through while a student at Houghton? And if so, how did those experiences shape you and how did you overcome them?
Hmm. I think of um, our year when we were on staff together, and we had a student who was part of our um, graduating class pass away. And without going into the details of all of that, I do remember being pulled in, because I was on staff at that point too, the residence life, being pulled into a room with fellow students who were also on that. And I remember sitting at the desk and being told the news. Um, and it was like, okay, guys, this is shocking. This is going to be really hard. I know it's hard for you guys, and it's going to be hard on the student body as a whole. So, how can we care for you so that you can then go out and care for your fellow students? Uh, and that's hard, right? That's the dichotomy as being in leadership, um, learning how to like take care of things for you and make sure that you're okay and your other fellow student leaders are okay, but then also turning outward and being able to be there for other people. And so a big thing there was like pressing into the community. I think that we had, really leaning on each other as an RA staff, who we all like knew what it felt like to be in that leadership role and deal with our own personal grief on that, but then
Mm,
also branch out, and care for our fellow students. Um, and then I think I also really leaned into and tried to learn how to practice the art of just being with someone. I
yeah.
think those whether it's adversity on a personal level, on a larger like group level as students, um, I think it's very easy for people to try to fix things right away. And I think situations, in college, in life as a like larger whole piece, that you can't just fix. There isn't something that you're going to say. There isn't something that you're going to do, um, that will fix, make the burden lighter, take away the hurt as much as you want to do all of those things. And so learning how to just be with someone, sitting just next to somebody and just saying, I'm here. Like, if you want to talk, great. If you don't want to talk, great. I'm just here. Like, let's just sit by side and just do homework together. Let's just sit outside on a bench and just be. And when you want to talk, I'm happy to talk. If you don't want to, we don't have to. And learning that, like, that's okay. Like, that's helpful for people. You don't always have to fix it. Sometimes just sitting in the hurt and being in the hurt with somebody is healing too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Kara, before we land the plane, I'd love for you to speak to what you're doing now and kind of the journey that got you to, from you shared how you got from Rhode Island to Western New York, now to Nashville, Tennessee. But what you're doing now, what family life looks like for you, and really what it looks like to draw from who you were and were becoming at Houghton, how those experiences shape who you are now and how you're showing up in marriage, as a mom, in
Yeah.
work, in your community.
Yeah. Well, just the real brief. I graduated in 2014, moved back to Rhode Island for a year, tried to figure out what I wanted to do, um, and found a program at Vanderbilt University through their medical center to do neurodiagnostic testing. So I came down here, did an 18-month training program, and did brain testing for a little bit. And I worked at the hospital for a year. And then through another Houghton alumni, actually got connected with a music company. And so I transitioned totally out of that, and now do nothing with what I originally came down here to do, which is just funny because I feel like sometimes people struggle with, what do I want to do with school? If you don't have a clear path forward, like, what am I doing? No matter what, like, it wasn't a waste, like
Mm.
I can look back, and just because my current job isn't utilizing like my psychology, textbook degree, I'm still using that. I'm still drawing on that information. And my time at Houghton, like, completely formed and shaped who I am. And so, it's just funny to like look back on that. But, so anyway, yeah, moved here, um, worked for a music company, and then, yeah, met my husband, and we got married in 2020 with the pandemic, which was a whole other set of circumstances. And so after we had our son, we have two kids. We have a 3-year-old son, and then I have a 1-year-old daughter. And I left the professional field once I had our son, and yeah, kind of moved out of that. And then did some wedding planning. So I kind of like moved a little bit with like the psychology thing and brain testing, and then music industry, and then doing some event planning and wedding planning. So right now, I'm doing none of that. And we're just super fortunate that I can stay home right now and raise our kids. Um, but that being said, that whole journey, like, I can look back, and we talked about that piece, right? Like, Nashville wasn't on the radar, but I remember having this piece that was supposed to be here, and God just opened doors in ways that like I could not have orchestrated, and made it very clear that this was where I needed to be. And this is where I met my husband and started like my family life. So yeah, it's cool to like reflect on that. So that's where I am now. But who I am at Houghton, and well, from Houghton, and my time there, the leadership skills, the like hospitality, and being able to create spaces for people, that's what I can do now. You know what I mean? Like, we have a home. And when we moved in this home, my husband and I just prayed that like this it would be a haven, that this would be a place of peace, that God would use this for his glory, that we would be able to host things. And use what he's given us to serve our community and our church. So, um, that's what we can do now. So that practically looks like, my husband and I lead a small group that meets every Wednesday here at our house. That's leadership skills that I pull from there. I'm raising kids, and we joke about the psychology of like raising children. My degree is being pulled into that. Um, but from a spiritual perspective too, like my life doesn't look like I'm going on missions trips or I'm, going out and doing this, but it means like being faithful where God has placed me. My mission field right now is my home. And and that's like hard and beautiful because it's a challenge to be a missionary in your own home. You know what I mean? Like God has given me this incredible responsibility and weight, not just me, obviously, like my husband and I, to raise kids that know the Lord. And that works on you because, you know, trying to live every day, dying to myself and my own needs so that I can pour into my children, and have them see the Lord in me and how we interact, teaching them how we, play with each other in a way that is honoring to the Lord. God calls us to be kind to each other, so it's like all of those things. That's where I am now. Um, and that's where like God has called me to live out what he has placed in my heart. You know what I mean? Like that's God's called me to be a mom. God's called me to have this be what life looks like right now. And so being faithful in that, um, while also still like serving the community where we can with what he's given me. So that's like all over the place, but it kind of all comes together of just
Mhm.
all of those pieces that I learned and was shaped while in Houghton still translates 10 years later to where I am now and where I can be, and how, I seek to pour out or be intentional about relationships, texting friends that aren't here to say, "Hey, like God brought you to mind today. How are you doing?" And oftentimes it's, "Gosh, yeah, this has been a really hard week. I'm so glad you reached out." Like you can still be intentional with those things even if they're not right here.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And yeah. And in 10 years' time, there'll be even more, right? To see what God's weaving together in your life.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, Kara, this has been really a gift, a gift to sit down with you and have this conversation. But I wonder if you, like, to close, were to say, here's one word of encouragement or caution or advice that you would be given to current Houghton students, what would that be?
Yeah. I think real briefly, it would be an encouragement to make the most of your time there. And that sounds so
Mm.
trite and easy, but never in your life again will you have some of your closest, potentially closest friends living minutes from you or step down from where you are, um, where you will have built in relationships and community. Where, how many times do we run into each other and, "Hey, yeah, I'm headed up to the cafeteria too. Like, we're coming out of chapel. Let's go grab a bite to eat together." Or, "Hey, we're, on a staff of 5. Let's all go and have a meal together. Or let's all go and go to the gym together." Or, that is such a built in thing. And it's so beautiful there to fully take advantage of it because you
Yeah.
will never have that again. So, my encouragement would be to take advantage of it. Um, and then the flip side of that is a challenge to be intentional once you leave Houghton to find places where you can build that community. It's very easy once you leave Houghton to kind of go out on your own, to not get involved in church again, or to not find other like-minded people to grow. Um, you're not going to have chapel that you have to go to multiple times a week. It is you. It's on you. And so my encouragement and challenge would be when you leave, be intentional about building that again, because it is vital to have that as you grow as a Christian into your adulthood.
Yeah. So wise. Awesome. Well, Kara, thank you so much for this. Really appreciate you and you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.